Let me ask you something that might sting a little. Why do you move through life like you're asking for permission to succeed? You weren't born to shrink. You weren't made to play small. And deep down you know this. So why do you act like victory is some foreign land reserved for others, while you settle for scraps? There's a reason the title hit you. Act like you were meant to win. Not wish. Not hope. Act. Because winners aren't chosen. They're revealed the moment someone dares to behave like their destiny was already written in gold. If you feel something stirring in your chest right now, keep listening. That's the sound of your old self cracking. And what's about to break through is dangerous in the best way. You say you want greatness, but your daily choices tell a different story. There's a deep disconnect between what you claim to desire and how you actually move through your life. Most people live in this silent contradiction, hoping for change while reinforcing the same patterns that keep them average. To act like you were meant to win, your behavior must mirror your beliefs so precisely that there's no space for contradiction. Winners don't perform for applause. They don't need outside evidence to begin. They start with conviction, and their actions become the evidence. They wake up before the doubt kicks in. They show up when the mood is missing. They push when the results are invisible. And every time they do, they confirm their identity, not to the world, but to themselves. Acting like you were meant to win means embodying your outcome long before it's visible. The world doesn't respond to your intentions, it responds to your frequency, your posture, your presence. When your belief is real, it radiates through your tone, your stride, your decisions. Even in silence, people can feel it, but most people wait. They wait for proof before they move. They wait for motivation before they act. That's not how winners operate. Winners are initiators. They don't ask for signs, they become the sign. And that shift from waiting to becoming is the turning point between a life of quiet frustration and a life of realized potential. Every small decision either affirms your belief or undermines it. When you hit snooze, when you skip the work, when you avoid the hard conversation, you're not just being lazy, you're reinforcing an identity that says you're not meant to win. But when you show up tired, when you finish the reps no one will see, when you hold the line while others collapse, you're declaring something powerful about who you are. This is how belief becomes embodied. Not through affirmations, but through repetition. Repetition of the hard things, the unglamorous things, the quiet victories that stack until the world has no choice but to notice. You cannot fake this. Pretending doesn't work. You either live like you were meant to win, or you don't. And the proof is in your patterns, not your word. Every day you're casting a vote for who you are becoming. Those votes add up. And over time, your actions start to write a story that belief alone never could. Fear has fooled more people than failure ever will. It's a master of disguise wearing the mask of logic, safety, and caution. But underneath, it's nothing more than a thief of destiny. When you begin to act like you were meant to win, fear doesn't vanish. It simply changes its role. It becomes a compass, not a wall. The presence of fear is not a signal to retreat. It's a clue that you're heading towards something meaningful. Weak minds interpret fear as danger. Strong minds recognize it as direction. The difference isn't in emotion, it's in interpretation. Those who rise don't eliminate fear, they walk straight into it and dare it to move. You were never meant to live in a comfort zone dressed as a cage. But fear whispers so subtly that most people never realize they've been locked inside. It tells you to wait until you're ready. It tells you to gather more proof. It tells you to avoid the risk, protect the ego, preserve your image. What it never tells you is what it's costing you. The missed opportunities, the dead ideas, the unused courage, the silence of a life that was never fully lived. When you act like you were meant to win, you stop negotiating with fear. You hear it, you feel it, but you don't obey it. The people you admire, the ones who broke through, don't think they were fearless. They weren't superhuman. They simply stopped allowing fear to vote on their future. They knew that every breakthrough lives on the other side of discomfort. They learned to use fear as fuel, to step into the very situations that made their hands shake and their voices tremble, because they understood something powerful. Fear is a liar, but it can also be a map that leads you straight to the growth you keep saying you want. If you only move when you feel safe, you'll build a life so small it suffocates you. But when you move while afraid, when you choose to do the thing anyway, you expand. You become bigger than the fear. Not because it disappeared, but because your actions made it irrelevant. The goal isn't to feel brave all the time. The goal is to act from your higher self even when your nervous system begs you to hide. Fear loses its grip the moment you stop treating it like truth. Discipline is not about willpower or punishment. It's the physical expression of who you believe yourself to be. Most people misunderstand it. They think discipline is just about grinding through routines or forcing action when they don't feel like it. But that's surface level. Real discipline goes deeper. It's identity in motion. When you act like you are meant to win, your discipline stops being a chore and starts becoming a reflection of your standard. You don't do it because you have to. You do it because anything less would feel like a betrayal of who you are. This is the level where success becomes inevitable. Not because the path is easy, but because your identity won't allow you to quit. There's a certain power that comes when your actions no longer depend on how you feel. When you don't have to negotiate with your mood, you free up energy to actually move forward. You begin to see progress not as a gift, but as a result. The days you show up tired, uninspired, and uncertain, those are the days that shape you. That's when you either reinforce the old story or carve a new one. Discipline is how the new story wins. It's not loud, it's not flashy. It's built in private. It's built in the early mornings, the late nights, the lonely hours where nobody is watching and no one is clapping. Winners don't rise because they're always motivated. They rise because their behavior is driven by identity, not emotion. They don't need to feel like a champion to train like one. And over time, this becomes their edge. While others wait for the mood to strike, they're building momentum. While others hesitate, they're stacking evidence. And that evidence matters. It rewires the brain. It makes belief real. Not through fantasy, but through consistent, disciplined action that proves you're exactly who you say you are. You can always tell who's faking it. They start strong, then disappear. But those who move with discipline, who repeat the work until the work becomes them, those are the ones who become unshakable. Because their habits aren't random. They're aligned with a mission. Their actions aren't desperate. They're deliberate. They've trained themselves to show up no matter what. And that kind of consistency creates a power most people will never understand. The average mind is constantly reacting, responding to conditions, adjusting to the opinions of others, waiting for circumstances to change before it makes a move. But the mind that is wired to win doesn't wait for conditions, it creates them. When you act like you are meant to win, you stop living from the outside in and start living from the inside out. You no longer ask what the world is giving you. You ask what you're building, shaping, and imposing upon the world. This isn't about control, it's about creation. The winner's mindset is rooted in cause, not effect. You don't wait for inspiration to find you. You act, and in doing so, you generate the very energy most people sit around wishing for. The person who thinks in causes doesn't wonder when success will arrive. They architect it. They take extreme ownership of their actions, their thoughts, and their decisions. They don't blame traffic, the weather, their boss, or their background. They take responsibility for how they show up. That responsibility becomes a source of power. It becomes a reminder that no matter what life throws at you, your response is still yours to own. You're not at the mercy of life, you're a participant in its unfolding. The shift is subtle, but the consequences are massive. When you live in reaction, your emotional state is determined by your environment. One bad comment, one delay, one disappointment, and your energy collapses. But when you live from cause, you generate emotion through intention. You choose your focus. You decide your frame. You respond with clarity instead of panic. And this isn't just mental. It's deeply practical. The most successful people in the world aren't just thinkers. They're doers. They get their hands dirty. They try. They fail. They adjust. But they're always in motion. They know that waiting kills momentum, and momentum is everything. This kind of thinking becomes a way of life. You begin to filter every problem through the lens of possibility. Not why is this happening to me, but what can I create from this? Not I hope this works out, but what move can I make to drive this forward? Every challenge becomes a spark. Every delay becomes a lesson. Every moment becomes a canvas, and you're the one holding the brush. Most people live their entire lives performing for an invisible audience. They adjust their actions, their dreams, even their personalities based on what they think others might think. They water down their ambition to seem humble, shrink their confidence to seem likable, and trade boldness for approval. But when you act like you were meant to win, that entire performance ends. You stop seeking applause from the crowd and start listening to the inner voice that actually knows who you are. There's a quiet kind of power that comes when you no longer need validation to move forward. Your steps become cleaner, your purpose sharpened. You stop second guessing and start executing. Silencing the inner audience doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop letting imaginary opinions write your future. Because most of the fear you feel doesn't even come from real criticism. It comes from mental projections of what someone might say, might think, might judge. And here's the truth. Those people you're afraid of, they're not thinking about you at all. They're wrapped up in their own insecurities, their own performances, their own inner audience. The fear of judgment is just a mirror of your own unfinished confidence. When you act like you were meant to win, you walk into rooms differently. You no longer wonder if you belong. You assume it, not with arrogance, but with certainty. You're not chasing permission, you're standing in purpose. And when people sense that, they either respect it or feel threatened by it. But that's none of your business, because your focus is no longer scattered across the imaginary stage of public opinion. It's anchored in mission. There's a difference between being seen and being approved. You can be deeply seen and still misunderstood. You can be wildly successful and still disliked. So the real game isn't to win the crowd, it's to win your own respect. To look in the mirror and know, without hesitation, that the person staring back isn't a watered-down version. They are who they said they would be. Not for show, but for real. That kind of clarity changes everything. It builds internal quiet in a world full of noise. It gives you the courage to say no to distractions, the stamina to keep going when the applause fades, and the freedom to pursue your path without looking over your shoulder. Most people want the prize but run from the prize. They speak about dreams as if they're waiting for them to show up, as if destiny is a matter of luck or timing. But when you act like you were meant to win, you understand something deeper. You realize the burden of destiny is not a curse, it's an honor. The responsibility to rise, to deliver, to follow through isn't given to everyone because not everyone is willing to carry it. But if you feel called, truly called, then the weight you feel on your back isn't there to crush you. It's there to shape you. To carry the burden of destiny means you no longer expect the path to be smooth. You're not shocked by resistance, you expect it, you welcome it, because you understand that resistance is not the enemy, it's the sculptor. It chisels away the soft parts, sharpens the edges, strengthens the core. The discipline you must build, the decisions you must make, the sacrifices you must accept, none of them are punishment. They are sacred demands required of anyone who dares to lead their own life, instead of following the crowd. Acting like you were meant to win isn't about hype or bravado. It's not about shouting affirmations into the mirror or pretending to have it all figured out. It's about stepping into the arena day after day, carrying the invisible weight of your vision, even when no one understands it, especially when no one understands it. You'll feel the solitude, you'll feel the fatigue, but you'll also feel something else. Clarity, purpose, the quiet knowing that you're doing exactly what you're here to do. The weight doesn't get lighter, but you get stronger. You learn how to carry yourself through exhaustion. You learn how to build when the motivation is gone. You learn how to trust the process when the results haven't arrived. And all of this, every hard choice, every early morning, every lonely decision, it all becomes a kind of proof. Proof that you're not dabbling in ambition. You're committed to it. And in a world full of excuses, that commitment makes you rare. The more responsibility you're willing to carry, the more influence you gain, not because you're chasing status, but because people follow strength. And strength is built through weight. The more you carry, the more you become.